Welcome to the Australian Business Executive Podcast, where we speak with Australia's most influential industry professionals on the business and economic development issues taking place across the country. You can stay up to date with all our content, including our magazines, podcasts and videos by visiting www.theabe.com.au and clicking on subscribe.
Today's guest is Equal Access Group MD Bruce Bromley. Bruce formed Equal Access in 2006 to assist organizations and businesses to meet their obligations under the Disability Discrimination Act, as most of the assistance available was focused on individuals. Bruce, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Jesse.
So firstly, why don't you take us through the background of Equal Access Group?
So my background was in construction, architecture and project management. Formed Equal Access 17 years ago. I joke about it because I was recently married. We had our first child. We had a mortgage. So what better time to go out, start a business without any clients?
Yes.
Then fast forward now to today, and we've got 4 parts in the Equal Access Group. The organisation continues to grow. We can consult nationally on a vast range of projects, and life couldn't be better.
Excellent. So further to that, then, why don't you give us an overview of the services within the business?
So the key professional services we provide, we do a lot in this space, which is increasing, is emergency and evacuation planning for people with disability. We consult, certify and register specialist disability accommodations under the NDIS or National Disability Insurance Scheme. We do property management as specialist disability accommodation, but we're finding an increase of requests for property portfolio audits by organisations so they can determine what level of accessibility they have provided, and this is falling under their ESG requirements. So we assess properties, have a look what issues they've got, then come back with recommendations on how accessibility can be improved. And that's to assist them should a staff member acquire a disability or they choose to employ someone with a disability. Major changes aren't then needed at that particular time. They're already prepared. At the end of the day, it's really about asking the question, is the space, building, product or conveyance fit for purpose to meet the diversity of people with disability?
I was going to ask you as well about you've got multiple business units as well, don't you?
Correct. So we've got Equal Access Disability Access Consultants. So that consults primarily to commercial, retail, hospitality, education, transport sectors to ensure accessibility is provided for people with disabilities. So compliance is critical there for organisations to protect themselves from any litigation and also any accidents due to non-compliance. Evaculifes, we formed probably about 14, 15 years ago, and that was mainly because we've got a building code that doesn't address evacuation planning properly for people with disabilities. And we started looking at policy planning and also equipment needed to get people with disability out of multi-storey buildings when lifts can't be used. So Evaculife now sells a whole range of both commercial type products, but also residential products for emergency evacuations. The third part of the business is SDA Consulting, which consults for specialist disability accommodation, which is being provided by the federal government under the National Disability Insurance Scheme. And lastly, we have Access and Safety, which sells a range of both accessibility and safety products, both for home and also the workplace.
What would make you different to the competitors in your space?
I'd say it would have to come back to the personalised level of service we provide our clients and our expertise. We're pretty unique with some of our offerings, particularly, as I mentioned earlier, the emergency evacuation planning for people with disabilities. It's getting a lot more awareness, and organisations are now starting to recognise their liabilities, not addressing that properly. We've developed our own cloud-based auditing system called Access Check, which allows us to audit buildings, infrastructure, transport facilities. We're the only company that has such a system and it allows us to audit considerably faster than old school manual techniques which other practices use. And it then provides a more professional report to clients at the end of the day.
Why don't you take us through some of the projects that you're currently involved in?
One of our major clients is actually Shea Group. They've purchased the Pentridge site, which is the old Pentridge prison out in Coburg, and we've been working with the guys there for over 10 years. It's an old bluestone prison under very strong heritage controls. It's where Chopper Read was incarcerated. It was where Ronald Ryan was hung. Here's some background of the place. But it's been undergoing various redevelopments from apartments through to new retail cinema precinct, new recently opened hotel and serviced apartments. And we've just finished working on a new museum and wine storage facility in A Division. So all the bluestone cells, they've made a number of those available now for people to be able to store wine. So yeah, it's a magnificent facility out there. Other projects we're working on currently, we've been working with the state government on multiple level crossing removal projects, the Brisbane ferries, new Brisbane ferries, the new Extrapolis trains in Melbourne here, Northeast Link tunnel and infrastructure, major upgrades to the Royal Children's Hospital ED, and we work through with education facilities, everything from early learning through to tertiary institutions.
Okay. So what does that mean for your organization in terms of its growth and near-term projections?
It's really just managing the demand. We've toyed recently about opening interstate offices, but staffing is an issue, trying to get qualified staff in this space. There's no real formal learning process available to equip individuals. So most of the learning is in an office or workplace environment where we have to bring associated people in, maybe occupational therapists, building surveyors, architects, draftsmen, and then get them trained up. So, and the way transport is, we have people going all over Australia. I was in Wyndham, right up the top of WA last year, Broome, Townsville. So we find usually travelling is easy way to service most of our clients anyway, rather than trying to manage interstate offices.
You had just touched on this with staffing, but can you expand on that and tell us about other industry issues that you're facing?
It's really just the growth post-COVID. We found for those, particularly with the lockdowns we had down in Victoria, then blowouts in construction costs, for those 2 to 3 years, a lot of projects were shelved and put on hold, but now they've been released into the workplace, and when we speak with architects, engineers, everyone's really struggling now to keep up with demand. And I think, builders having the same issues. Sadly, we're seeing a lot of builders go under, but just trying to maintain that delivery and expected delivery time frames of clients is a struggle at times.
Now, before we finish today, is there anything else that you haven't had a chance to address or would otherwise like to make mention of?
Probably the biggest issue we're currently seeing in the industry is what we touched on earlier, which is emergency evacuation planning. We still don't have a building code in Australia that addresses provide any prescriptive guidance on how buildings should be designed to provide life safety features for people with disabilities, considering, mobility impaired individuals can't walk downstairs. We don't have anything whatsoever in our codes that address this, and it's something that is sorely lacking. On a positive side of things, we're seeing an increase in accessible tourism. When you think the $13.5 billion market domestically for accessible tourism, so we're part of a consortium that has developed an accessible travel database called Go Access Travel, and that's due to launch in the 23 financial year. We've just completed live testing and only have received positive feedback from providers. So what this is structured to do is allow accommodation and activity providers, such as bungee jumping, camping, wineries, and the like to do self-assessments of their services and facilities and have that stored in a cloud-based environment. We've chosen a carrot, not a stick approach with this. So it allows those providers to undertake their internal reviews, and we're not reviewing against compliance to building codes or standards. As we know, most facilities will not achieve compliance to the current requirements. However, it doesn't mean they're not accessible and usable by people with disabilities. So part of this is for them to present the information of their facilities. So for a hotel, it might be photos of the car parking, the entrance of the rooms, the bathrooms, along with sizes and any specific features. So it'll allow people with disabilities to go onto those websites, click the link, and actually see up-to-date photos, information on what is available to them to allow them to make an educated decision. That data can then be linked from, be a mum and dad motel website through to one of the large travel providers, hotel chains, or even through to travel aggregators. And the system, by not using a compliance model, means it can be used both nationally and internationally. And as I said, that's due to launch very soon, and we're very excited about that.
Excellent. Well, Bruce, I really appreciate your time today.
Excellent. Thank you for the opportunity.
This has been a production of the Australian Business Executive, a division of Romulus Rising Proprietary Limited. All rights reserved. You can stay up to date with the Australian Business Executive, including our magazines, podcasts and videos, by visiting www.theabe.com.au and clicking on subscribe.